The symbol of the Baphomet is one of the most misunderstood and enigmatic icons in the history of Western esotericism. A horned figure, often depicted as a goat-headed being with outstretched wings, enigmatic hands, and a mystic gaze, this creature has sparked fear, fascination, and controversy for centuries. For many, the Baphomet conjures images of secret rites, forbidden knowledge, and dark conspiracies. It has been branded as a symbol of the Antichrist, an embodiment of satanic worship, and a marker of all that is forbidden. But is this perception grounded in truth, or is it a shadow cast by the fear of the unknown? The answer, as you will soon discover, is very nuanced and complex. For the story of the Baphomet is a tale that begins in darkness, but journeys toward illumination. It is a symbol that has been shaped, reshaped, and reinterpreted by the minds and souls of each generation that has encountered it. From the accusations of heresy against the Knights Templar in the medieval period to the mystical teachings of the 19th century occultist Éliphas Lévi and the radical reimagining by Aleister Crowley, the prophet of the new Aeon, to the defiant appropriation by the Church of Satan and the political activism of the Satanic Temple in our modern era, the Baphomet has evolved, adapted, and persisted as a powerful and provocative symbol. Yet, amidst this history of fear, intrigue, and symbolism lies a deeper truth waiting to be discovered. So, what is the true meaning of the Baphomet? How did this figure of medieval fear become an icon of modern spirituality, rebellion, and liberation? And what secrets does it hold for those brave enough to seek them? These are but a few of the many profound questions that we will answer today. So, grab a drink, open up your notes, and let us lift the veil of mystery and superstition to reveal the hidden truth. Welcome to Agrippa's Diary, the gathering place for mystical seekers. Before we dive in, be sure to check out and subscribe to my secondary channels, Vox Occulta, where you'll find deep esoteric lectures on the mysteries of the occult, and Ex Humanitas, where we explore the frontiers of technology and transhumanism, and what these advances mean for the future of humanity in a rapidly changing world. With the rise of censorship, it's important for us to stay connected through as many means as possible. You can access the links in the video description, the pinned comment, or by tapping on the card at the top right of the screen. Thank you kindly. To grasp the significance of the Baphomet, we must begin by stripping away the layers of fear and misconception that have enshrouded it for centuries. We must dig deep into the soil of time, where its roots twist through history, myth, and esoteric tradition. The word Baphomet first appears like a whisper in the twilight of the medieval period, yet its true origins may stretch back into far more distant times. The name itself has been a riddle to scholars and seekers alike. Some argue that it is a corrupted form of the name Mahomet, a term used by the Crusaders to refer to the Prophet of Islam, reflecting their misunderstanding or deliberate demonization of the unfamiliar faith of their adversaries. But such an interpretation, while historically intriguing, seems to skim only the surface. Others suggest that Baphomet could be an amalgamation of two Greek words, Baphe, meaning baptism or immersion, and metis, the Greek word for wisdom. Thus, the name could signify baptism of wisdom or a transformative initiation into higher knowledge. Here, we find the first of many clues. Baphomet is not a simple idol of terror, but a symbol of initiation and enlightenment, a signpost pointing the way to hidden wisdom. An old occult saying goes, "He who does not know how to unravel the mysteries of the sacred symbols is like the blind groping in the darkness." Yet we must venture further back into the mists of antiquity to uncover the older spiritual currents that might feed into this icon. The figure of the Baphomet shares much with ancient depictions of the divine in its varied forms. The goat-headed god with cloven hooves calls to mind the image of Pan, the wild god of nature, shepherds, and fertility, whose revels brought both terror and ecstasy. Pan, the god whose laughter echoes in the lonely wilderness, was both adored and feared, embodying the untamed forces of the natural world, forces that the human mind struggles to comprehend or control. Even more profoundly, the Baphomet may represent the hermaphroditic principle, a symbol of dual gender, uniting male and female within a single form. This androgynous aspect, which mirrors the alchemical concept of the rebes, or the divine hermaphrodite, is an emblem of unity, wholeness, and the synthesis of opposites. The Baphomet's breast and phallic symbol in later depictions suggests a conjoining of feminine and masculine principles, a manifestation of the alchemical goal of the great work, the reconciliation of opposites into a new, more complete form of consciousness. As we trace the name through time, from its obscure origins to its later manifestations, it becomes evident that Baphomet is more than a mere name. It is a mirror reflecting the fears, hopes, and spiritual yearnings of those who gaze upon it. To some, it was the face of heresy and danger. To others, a guardian of sacred knowledge. Its horns, those most ancient symbols of power and divinity, link it to deities as diverse as Cernunnos, the Celtic god of the forest, to Moses, who, as legend and art would have it, descends from Sinai with horns of light. In all these, we see the symbol evolve, a mutable, multifaceted emblem that, depending on the eye of the beholder, can signify sin or salvation, darkness or enlightenment. Thus, the name Baphomet echoes across time not as a static signifier, but as a dynamic and transformative emblem. Its origins are not rooted in any one doctrine or tradition, but rather in the ever-shifting sands of human belief, where the symbols of one age become the heresies of the next. To know the Baphomet is to enter a labyrinth where every path leads deeper into the mysteries, where every answer births a new question. And so, as we stand before this ancient riddle, we must ask ourselves, is the Baphomet an idol of evil, or is it the hidden key to higher wisdom? The journey has only just begun. To delve into the mysterious connection between the Baphomet and the Knights Templar, we must descend into a world of shadows, a world filled with secrecy, sacred oaths, and the ever-present spectre of conspiracy. It is in this darkened realm that the first seeds of the legend were sown, and where the name Baphomet first emerges in the annals of history. The year is 1307, and the dawn brings with it the scent of smoke and fear. On a fateful Friday, the 13th of October, the French king, Philip IV, known as Philip the Fair for his outward appearance, but perhaps better understood as Philip the Treacherous for his inner machinations, orders the mass arrest of the Knights Templar. Accusations abound: blasphemy, heresy, sodomy, and the most curious of all, the worship of a strange and forbidden idol known as Baphomet. Under the harsh lights of the Inquisitor's torch, the Templars were accused of bowing to this idol, kissing it in secret ceremonies, and invoking its power for their mysterious rites. What was this Baphomet that they were accused of venerating? Was it a head, a horned god, or some ancient relic? The descriptions varied. Sometimes it was said to be a severed head, other times a black cat or a bearded face with enigmatic eyes. Tortured and broken, some confessed to seeing this Baphomet in their secret chapels, yet their accounts were confused, perhaps deliberately so by their persecutors. To the medieval mind, brainwashed by the doctrines of the Church and fearing the unknown, the very name Baphomet was an anathema, a symbol of everything that threatened their established order. But why was this particular name and this particular symbol so dangerous? To understand why the Baphomet was seen as a threat, we must look beyond the accusations and delve into the hidden spiritual practices that may have informed the beliefs of the Templars. During their time in the Holy Land, the Templars were not merely warriors, they became seekers, mystics, and initiates into arcane knowledge. They came into contact with diverse spiritual traditions, including the Gnostic sects that had taken root in the Middle East, and the mystics of Sufi Islam, who spoke of an inner path to divine understanding. The Gnostics, those enigmatic seekers of wisdom who flourished in the early centuries of Christianity, believed in a reality shaped by dualities, light and darkness, matter and spirit, ignorance and knowledge. For the Gnostics, salvation was not found in blind faith, but in gnosis, direct experiential knowledge of the divine. To them, the material world was a prison, a shadow cast by the flawed demiurge, a lesser god who bound the human spirit to the physical realm. True freedom, they believed, lay in transcending these dualities, in understanding the hidden unity that lay beyond the veil of appearances. Could the Baphomet, in its original form, have been a symbol of such Gnostic wisdom? After all, the symbolism of the Baphomet, as you will discover late in the video, reflect these exact beliefs. As mentioned earlier, some scholars suggest that the word itself might derive from the Gnostic Baphometis, the baptism of wisdom. This interpretation transforms the Baphomet from a demonic figure into a symbol of initiation, representing the union of opposites, the reconciliation of dualities, and the baptism into hidden truths. This might explain why the Templars, who were believed to be privy to hidden knowledge and esoteric practices, would be accused of venerating such a symbol. Further deepening the mystery is the connection between the Templars and the Cathars, a Gnostic Christian sect that flourished in southern France until their brutal extermination in the Albigensian Crusade. The Cathars believed in a dualistic worldview, one that saw the material world as a creation of a lesser evil god called the Demiurge, and the spiritual realm as the true home of the soul. They too were persecuted for their beliefs, condemned as heretics by a church that saw their doctrines as a direct threat to its authority. There are whispers that the Templars and the Cathars were more than passing acquaintances. Some say that the Cathar survivors found refuge among the Templars, who were drawn to their ascetic lifestyle and shared disdain for the materialistic church. If so, it would not be a stretch to imagine that the Templars adopted some of the Cathar symbols and beliefs, including the use of the Baphomet as a representation of hidden knowledge and spiritual transcendence. The Templars may have seen the Baphomet not as a literal idol, but as a symbolic representation of the lost knowledge of the Cathars, a continuation of their quest to discover the divine truths hidden from the masses. Yet the tale does not end there. The shadow of the Baphomet stretches further, reaching into the traditions of Freemasonry, an order that claims direct descent from the Knights Templar. If the Gnostics, and by extension the Templars, worshipped the proto-Christian demiurge, and the Baphomet was in fact a symbolic representation of this idol, then we might have a link here. The god of the Freemasons, known as the Great Architect, has often been associated with the demiurge, and the alchemy of the Rosicrucian Freemasons incorporates Gnostic beliefs. This is clearly evident in the symbolism, so while we might not be dealing with the same names of entities here, we are certainly dealing with the same principles and knowledge. It's important to note that this subject is very touchy for Freemasons because of the Taxil hoax, so saying that the Freemasons worship the Baphomet is clearly incorrect, especially if we are talking about a surface-level demonic figure. So be careful how you frame things. Again, the Baphomet discussed in this section of the video is a symbol of initiation, of the universal mysteries, an emblem of the great cosmic balance between opposites. But on what do we base this information? Manly Palmer Hall, a venerable 33-degree Masonic scholar who is considered a source of sober esoteric knowledge, suggests that the Templars, during their time in the Holy Land, came into contact with esoteric knowledge preserved by the Arab mystics, a synthesis of the teachings of the ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Persians. According to Hall, the Templars may have inherited the sacred mysteries, which had been preserved in the East since the time of the Crusades. In his book, Lectures on Ancient Philosophy, and Introduction to the Study and Application of Rational Procedure, the Venerable Hall writes, "The mysteries of Egypt and Persia that had found a haven in the Arabian desert reached Europe by way of the Knights Templars and the Rosicrucians. The Temple of the Rose Cross at Damascus had preserved the secret philosophy of Sharon's Rose. The Druses of Lebanon still retain the mysticism of ancient Syria, and the dervishes, as they lean on their carved and crotched sticks, still meditate upon the secret instruction perpetuated from the days of the four caliphs. From the far places of Iraq and the hidden retreats of the Sufi mystics, the ancient wisdom thus found its way into Europe. Several initiated Rosicrucians were brought from the mainland to England, where they remained for a considerable time designing the symbolism of Freemasonry and incorporating into the rituals of the order the same divine principles and philosophy that had formed the inner doctrine of all great secret societies from the time of the Eleusinian in Greece. In fact, the Eleusinian mysteries themselves continued in Christendom until the 6th century after Christ, after which they passed into the custody of the Arabians, as attested by the presence of Masonic symbols and figures upon early Mohammedan monuments. The adepts brought over from the continent to sit in council with the English philosophers were initiates of the Arabian rites, and thus, through them, the mysteries were ultimately returned to Christendom. Upon completion of the bylaws of the new fraternity, the initiates retired again into Central Europe, leaving a group of disciples to develop the outer organization, which was to function as a sort of screen to conceal the activities of the esoteric order. Such, in brief, is the story to be pieced together from the fragmentary bits of evidence available. The whole structure of Freemasonry is founded upon the activities of this secret society of Central European adepts, whom the studious Mason will find to be the definite link between the modern craft and the ancient wisdom. The outer body of Masonic philosophy was merely the veil of this Kabbalistic order, whose members were the custodians of the true arcanum. This knowledge, far older than Christianity, encompassed a deep understanding of nature, the cosmos, and the human soul's journey toward enlightenment. The Baphomet, in this context, could be viewed as a symbol of the ancient mysteries, a cipher pointing to the secret teachings guarded by the Templars. To strengthen this argument even further, the figure of Abraxas, a Gnostic deity associated with the blending of opposites, appears on a Templar seal, further suggesting that the Templars were engaged in a form of spiritual syncretism that blended Christian, pagan, and Gnostic elements. In fact, the Baphomet and Abraxas share certain thematic similarities, particularly their associations with duality, unity, and the integration of opposites. Was the Baphomet another expression of this syncretic spirituality? A symbol that transcended the narrow confines of Orthodox religion to embrace a more universal understanding of divinity? Again, everything remains speculative, so we cannot give a concrete answer. In the lore of the Rosicrucians, a secretive mystical order that emerged in the 17th century, the figure of Christian Rosenkreutz is said to have traveled across the East, learning the secret doctrines of the Arab, Persian, and Indian sages before returning to Europe to form a hidden brotherhood dedicated to the pursuit of esoteric knowledge. According to Maurice Magret, Rosenkreutz is depicted as a man of Gnostic and Cathar descent, his teachings echoing those of both traditions, but this is highly speculative. Could the journey of Rosenkreutz and the formation of the Rosicrucian order represent the continuation of the Templar legacy, and the Baphomet an enduring symbol of this hidden wisdom? It's up to you to figure that out. Remember, we are dealing with allegories here, which should be treated as such. In the end, the Baphomet stands as a symbol of the hidden, the forbidden, and the transformative. It represents knowledge that is not easily grasped, that exists outside the boundaries of conventional understanding. It is a riddle that resists easy answers, a mirror reflecting the fears, desires, and deepest spiritual yearnings of those who dare to seek its meaning. For the Templars, it may have been a symbol of their quest for hidden knowledge, an emblem of the mysteries they guarded and for which they were ultimately persecuted. For the Church, it was a convenient scapegoat, a demonic idol that justified the destruction of an order that had grown too powerful, too wealthy, and too independent. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between, in the shadows between the torchlight and the darkness. Thus, the connection between the Baphomet and the Knights Templar is not one that can be unraveled with simple answers or mundane explanations. It is a tale woven from many threads: history, myth, spirituality, and conspiracy. The Baphomet, in the end, remains a symbol, not just of one thing, but of many. Not just of the past, but of the eternal human quest for knowledge, power, and transcendence. Into a powerful emblem of spiritual synthesis and esoteric wisdom. To understand Lévi's conception of the Baphomet is to journey deep into the arcane heart of the Western occult tradition. Born Alphonse Louis Constant, Lévi chose his pen name from the Hebrew words for God, El, and strong, Phaz, reflecting his belief in the divine strength of knowledge. Lévi saw himself as a modern magus, a reincarnation of the ancient sages and alchemists who sought the secrets of the universe in the stars and in the hidden corners of the human soul. For Lévi, the Baphomet was not a demonic idol, as the Church had long insisted, but a profound symbol of the universal mysteries, an emblem of the great cosmic balance between opposites. Lévi's vision of the Baphomet was most famously captured in his 1854 work, Dogme et rituel de la haute magie, Dogma and Ritual of High Magic, where he presented the now iconic image of the horned, winged figure seated in a meditative posture. In his writings, the Baphomet expresses occult natural forces that are explained by his magical theory of the astral light. He developed this notion in the context of what has been called spiritualist magnetism, theories that stressed the religious implications of magnetism. Often, their representatives were socialists who believed in the social consequences of a synthesis of religion and science that was to be achieved by means of magnetism. With this single image, Lévi transformed the Baphomet from a figure of fear into a symbol of arcane wisdom and spiritual awakening. He writes, "The Baphomet is the sphinx of the mystic arts, the key to the enigmas of the divine and the profane, the veil that both conceals and reveals the mysteries of existence." The image that Lévi drew, namely that of a figure seated upon a cube, with the head of a goat, the breasts of a woman, and the wings of a bat or an angel, is a synthesis of seemingly contradictory elements, each part a cipher for hidden truths. To the uninitiated it may appear monstrous, a chaotic blend of human, animal, and divine forms. But for Lévi, every aspect of this image was deeply symbolic, a visual embodiment of the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. Let us examine each element in detail to understand how Lévi constructed this most enigmatic of symbols. The head of the Baphomet is that of a goat, with large curling horns. This goat-headed figure immediately evokes associations with the scapegoat, a creature burdened with the sins of the community and driven into the wilderness, an apt metaphor for the misunderstood symbol itself. The goat is also a creature sacred to many ancient gods, from Pan, the Greek god of nature and the wild, to the Egyptian god Bane-Bjedet, the soul of Osiris. In Lévi's hands, the goat becomes a symbol of primal nature, fertility, and the instinctive forces of life that must be mastered by the true adept. Upon the forehead of the Baphomet rests a pentagram, a five-pointed star. But Lévi was careful to draw this star with one point facing upward, the good pentagram, symbolizing the human spirit's triumph over the material elements: earth, air, fire, and water. To Lévi, this upward-pointing pentagram was a sign of spiritual aspiration, contrasting sharply with the inverted pentagram, which signifies the descent into materialism and ignorance. The Baphomet's body is androgynous, combining male and female characteristics. It possesses the breasts of a woman, yet its muscular arms and shoulders suggest masculine strength. This androgyny is deliberate. It represents the alchemical concept of the rebis, the divine hermaphrodite, the union of opposites necessary for the creation of the philosopher's stone. For Levi, this was not a symbol of a physical union, but of spiritual balance, the synthesis of male and female principles, reason and intuition, intellect and emotion, which together form the complete human being. The wings of the Baphomet are those of an angel, specifically a seraph, the highest order of angels in Christian mysticism. This suggests that the Baphomet is not a figure of demonic origins, but of celestial ones. The wings symbolize the power of ascension, the ability to rise above the material plane and achieve enlightenment. The juxtaposition of angelic wings with the goat's head hints at the Baphomet's role as an intermediary between the divine and the earthly, a guide for those who seek to transcend the mundane. In place of genitalia, Levi drew a caduceus, a staff entwined by two serpents, surmounted by a winged orb. The caduceus is an ancient symbol associated with Hermes Trismegistus, the mythic founder of Hermeticism and the messenger of the gods. It represents balance, duality, and the synthesis of opposites. The intertwined serpents symbolize the dual currents of life force, known in Eastern traditions as Ida and Pingala, or the yin and yang, spiraling up the spine to awaken the third eye, the seat of higher consciousness. The Baphomet's arms are extended, one pointing upward toward the heavens with the inscription Solve, to dissolve, and the other pointing downward to the earth with the inscription Coagula, to coagulate. This gesture, reminiscent of the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, represents the perpetual cycle of dissolution and coagulation, death and rebirth, destruction and creation. It is the formula of alchemy, the fundamental process through which base matter is transformed into gold, and the soul is purified and made divine. Crowning the Baphomet's head is a torch, burning with a flame that symbolizes enlightenment, the inner light of the awakened soul. For Levi, this torch is the light of Lucifer, the light bringer, not in the sense of the Christian Satan, but as the Gnostic angel of knowledge, who brings the light of understanding to a darkened world. It represents the illumination that comes from within, the divine spark that ignites the quest for wisdom and truth. The Baphomet is seated upon a cubic stone, a fundamental symbol in Western esotericism. The cube represents the material world, the four elements, and the earthly plane. Yet the cube is also the foundation of the philosopher's temple, the perfect stone upon which the seeker builds their path to higher knowledge, a foundational Masonic symbol. The Baphomet's posture, seated upon this cube, suggests mastery over the material realm, a balanced foundation from which to explore the spiritual heights. Fellow mystics, if you enjoyed unraveling the symbolism of Baphomet, I have exciting news. For over a year, I have been meticulously crafting something truly special, my first product, designed to guide you deeper into the hidden mysteries. Many of you who follow me on Patreon have already heard whispers of this project and have been waiting patiently for its release. Now, the time has come to reveal it to the world. In the realm of spiritual knowledge, there are two paths, one for the initiated and one for the profane. The lost secrets of alchemical symbolism is your gateway into the esoteric world of alchemical symbols, once reserved only for the initiates. In this course, you will learn how to meditate on and interpret powerful alchemical, Masonic, and Rosicrucian emblems, unlocking their profound psychological and philosophical teachings through immersive videos and simplified modules. For those seeking the wisdom of the initiates, self-initiation is not only possible, it begins with laying a solid foundation. This course is that foundational stone. I am thrilled to announce that the waitlist is now officially open. To reserve your spot and be among the first to embark on this truly transformative journey, simply follow the link in the video description or the pinned comment. As a bonus, you'll receive a hefty discount, and it will cost you nothing to sign up. Thank you kindly, and now, back to the video. To solve the riddle of the Baphomet is akin to solving the riddle of the Sphinx, who in the ancient days was the gatekeeper of the mysteries. It is truly the most profound symbol of initiation. For Levi, the Baphomet is an emblem of the reconciliation of opposites, light and darkness, good and evil, masculine and feminine, body and spirit. It is the light that blinds, but also the light that reveals. It is both angel and demon, a figure that transcends conventional morality to embody the wholeness of the divine. In this way, Levi challenges the dualistic thinking that divides the world into stark categories of good and evil, suggesting instead that true wisdom lies in understanding the unity that underlies all things. Levi's Baphomet is a key to spiritual alchemy, the great work of transforming the lead of base consciousness into the gold of divine understanding. The figure stands as a challenge to the seeker. Dare to embrace the contradictions within yourself, to integrate the shadow and the light, the sacred and the profane. For it is through this integration that the soul finds liberation. In his writings, Levi often speaks of the need to approach the mysteries with reverence, humility, and an open heart. He warns against the dangers of blind dogmatism, urging instead the path of discernment, study, and inner reflection. To gaze upon the Baphomet is to confront the self in all its complexity, to see not a demon, but a mirror reflecting the inner journey of the soul. Thus, Levi's Baphomet serves as a symbol of forbidden knowledge, the hidden wisdom that has been rejected and vilified by orthodox institutions throughout history. It is a reminder that truth is not always found in the temples of power, but often in the shadows, on the fringes, in the places where the light of understanding has yet to shine. In sterquilinius invenitur, in filth, it will be found. If Éliphas Lévi provided the skeleton of the modern Baphomet, it was Aleister Crowley who, with characteristic audacity, gave it flesh, blood, and a potent revolutionary spirit. To Crowley, the great beast 666, the Baphomet was not merely a symbol of spiritual balance, as it was to Levi, but a living dynamic force, a guide and a guardian of the new Aeon of Horus, an era characterized by personal enlightenment, spiritual transformation, and radical freedom. Crowley, the self-proclaimed prophet of Thelema, did more than reinterpret the Baphomet. He exalted it, proclaiming it the ultimate symbol of initiation into the mysteries of the self. In his vision, the Baphomet was a cipher for the reconciliation of all opposites, an icon for the seeker who dares to transcend the limitations of conventional morality and embrace the full spectrum of human experience. Crowley, in his characteristic flair for the dramatic, adopted the name Baphomet for himself when he ascended to the head of the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, a secret society that espoused a blend of Eastern and Western mystical practices, sexual magic, and esoteric Christianity. Crowley chose the name with great deliberation, aware of its many layered meanings and its association with the Templars, whom he considered spiritual predecessors in the quest for hidden truth. For Crowley, the Baphomet represented not merely an esoteric symbol, but a personal archetype, a spiritual mantle that embodied his vision of the new Aeon. To adopt the name Baphomet was to declare himself an agent of the mysteries, a custodian of ancient wisdom, and a herald of a new era of spiritual liberation. Crowley's teachings often centered on the concept of duality, not as an irreconcilable opposition, but as a dynamic tension that could be resolved through the spiritual alchemy of love, will, and knowledge. He writes, "The Baphomet represents the spiritual androgyne, the divine hermaphrodite that reconciles all opposites, bringing into perfect harmony the male and the female, light and darkness, creation and destruction, order and chaos. Crowley was deeply influenced by the alchemical concept of the rebis, the twice-born, or the divine hermaphrodite. This archetype, which also fascinated Lévi, represents the perfected human being who has achieved inner balance by integrating both masculine and feminine qualities. For Crowley, the Baphomet embodied this androgynous ideal. It was the great reconciler that could unify all dualities, light and darkness, life and death, masculine and feminine, within the self. Crowley's Baphomet is also steeped in the themes of sexual alchemy, a core component of his magical philosophy. In Crowley's teachings, sex is not merely a biological act, but a profound metaphysical ritual through which divine energies can be harnessed and directed. The Baphomet, in Crowley's view, symbolizes the raw, primal, creative force that flows through the universe, the Kundalini or serpent power, that can be awakened and channeled through acts of conscious love and spiritual union. For Crowley, the sex act was the ultimate act of magic, a gateway to spiritual ecstasy and transcendence, and the Baphomet stood as its emblem, embodying the union of opposites that generates cosmic life force. Central to Crowley's conception of the Baphomet is the idea that enlightenment comes from embracing all facets of existence, both the light and the shadow. The Baphomet, with its symbolic androgyny, represents a state beyond dualistic thinking. For Crowley, the true adept understands that all things contain their opposites, that pleasure and pain, creation and destruction, male and female, are all expressions of a singular divine unity. This is reflected in the Thelemic axiom, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," a declaration of radical self-sovereignty that rejects conventional morality in favor of a deeper, more personal truth. Crowley's magnum opus, the Book of the Law, Liber Ael Vel Legis, written in Cairo in 1904, prophesies the dawn of the Aeon of Horus, an era in which humanity would move beyond the restrictions of past religions and embrace the divine potential within. The Baphomet, in Crowley's system, is a herald of this new aeon, a symbol of the divine nature of humanity and the power of individual will. Crowley saw the Baphomet as intimately linked to the Greek god Pan, a deity of wild nature, sexual energy, and unrestrained ecstasy. Crowley's interpretation of the Baphomet draws heavily on this ecstatic Dionysian energy. It is a symbol not only of wisdom, but of joyous, creative freedom, unbound by the rigid moral structures of the past. To Crowley, Pan represents the primal life force, the raw, untamed spirit that dwells within all beings, and the Baphomet is its hierophant, the divine teacher who leads the seeker into the wilderness of the soul to discover their true nature. In Crowley's magical teachings, the Baphomet acts also as a living force, a spirit of light that guides the seeker through the darkness of ignorance to the light of gnosis. Crowley believed that true enlightenment required the seeker to confront the shadow aspects of the self, the fears, desires, and hidden impulses that lie buried beneath the conscious mind. In the figure of the Baphomet, Crowley found a powerful symbol for this journey into the underworld of the psyche, a guide who leads the initiate through the shadows to the light of understanding. To approach the Baphomet is to confront one's deepest fears and desires, to gaze into the abyss and find the light within the darkness. Crowley's reinterpretation of the Baphomet fundamentally changed the way the symbol is viewed in modern esotericism. No longer merely a relic of medieval heresy or a misunderstood pagan deity, the Baphomet became a living symbol of the spiritual quest, an icon of the liberated soul, and a rallying point for those who seek the hidden wisdom of the ages. Under Crowley's influence, the Baphomet transcended its medieval origins to become a symbol of the great work, a figure that represents the ultimate union of opposites, the integration of all aspects of the self, and the path to divine realization. Thus, in Crowley's vision, the Baphomet stands as the ultimate symbol of personal liberation and spiritual transformation. It is the embodiment of the thelemic ideal, a figure that calls the seeker to rise above the ordinary, to transcend the dualities of the material world, and to embrace the infinite potential of the self. In the winding path of the Baphomet's evolution, it was perhaps inevitable that this enigmatic symbol would eventually find a place within the pantheon of modern Satanism. Through the work of Anton LaVey and the establishment of the Church of Satan in the mid-20th century, the Baphomet was transformed yet again, assuming a new role as an emblem of self-empowerment, defiance, and carnal wisdom. He writes, "Let the Baphomet be the symbol of those who live by their own rules, who are true to their own nature, and who stand unafraid in the face of life's contradictions." Anton LaVey, a charismatic and controversial figure, founded the Church of Satan in 1966, aiming to create a religious framework that opposed the moral constraints and hypocrisies he saw in mainstream religions, particularly Christianity. He sought to construct a belief system that embraced the full range of human experience, including desire, indulgence, and personal freedom. To this end, LaVey needed a potent symbol to serve as a banner for his new movement, and the Baphomet, with its aura of mystery and its historic associations with heresy, rebellion, and arcane knowledge, provided the perfect image. In 1969, LaVey introduced the sigil of Baphomet as the official insignia of the Church of Satan in the Satanic Bible. The sigil features a goat's head within an inverted pentagram, surrounded by 5 Hebrew letters spelling Leviathan, the mythic sea serpent from the Bible, often associated with chaos and the subconscious. This image, stark and powerful, quickly became synonymous with modern Satanism. The goat's head, reminiscent of Levi's sabbatic goat, was chosen to represent the scapegoat, a creature traditionally burdened with the sins of others, here reclaiming its power as a symbol of autonomy, pride, and self-determination. LaVey's adaptation of the Baphomet was not merely a matter of aesthetics, it was a deliberate act of recontextualization. Where Levi had emphasized the Baphomet as a balanced symbol of harmony between opposites, LaVey focused on the more rebellious and defiant aspects of the figure. To the Church of Satan, the Baphomet represented the carnal, the material, and the earthly, in opposition to the spiritual and the divine. The inverted pentagram, with its point facing downward, symbolized spirit descending into matter, a direct contradiction to traditional symbols of spiritual ascension. For LaVey, the Baphomet was a symbol of life lived to its fullest, embracing both light and shadow, virtue and vice. At the heart of LaVeyan Satanism is the belief that each individual is their own god, and the Baphomet serves as a powerful symbol of this self-deification. Unlike the religious traditions that encourage submission to a higher power, Satanism encourages its adherents to place themselves at the center of their own spiritual universe. The Baphomet, with its multifaceted symbolism and historical associations with rebellion against authority, became the perfect emblem for this philosophy. In the Satanic Bible, LaVey emphasized a philosophy of rational self-interest, where the pursuit of personal goals and desires is seen as the highest form of fulfillment. The Baphomet, as a symbol of Satanism, embodies this pursuit of personal power and autonomy. Unlike in Christian iconography, where the goat may symbolize sin, LaVey reclaims it as a representation of natural instincts and the unashamed expression of one's true nature. In this sense, the Baphomet becomes an icon of the individual who embraces their own will and seeks their own path, unburdened by societal or religious dogmas. The Church of Satan, unlike many religious institutions, does not shy away from the sensual or carnal aspects of human nature. On the contrary, it celebrates them as vital parts of the human experience. The Baphomet's goat-like features, associated with lust, vitality, and nature, underscore this embrace of the carnal. In this interpretation, the Baphomet becomes a celebration of the flesh, a declaration that the material world and its pleasures are not something to be transcended, but rather embraced as essential to a fulfilling life. For Lévi, the Baphomet was also a symbol of rebellion against the hypocrisy he perceived in mainstream religious teachings. He viewed many organized religions, particularly Christianity, as denying or vilifying natural human impulses while secretly indulging in them. The Baphomet, therefore, was a symbol of honesty, a creature that embraces its nature openly and without shame. By adopting the Baphomet, the Church of Satan positioned itself as the champion of those who live authentically and fearlessly, rejecting the false piety and moralism of other faiths. The adoption of the Baphomet by the Church of Satan has had a profound impact on its cultural perception. It has come to be widely recognized as an emblem of Satanism, often misunderstood and feared by those who see it as an icon of evil. Yet, for those within the Church, the Baphomet is far from a symbol of malevolence. By appropriating the Baphomet as their emblem, the Church of Satan has reclaimed a symbol that was long associated with heresy and deviance, turning it into a mark of pride. This act of reclamation serves not only as a rejection of conventional morality, but as a declaration of the right to self-definition and personal freedom. The Baphomet, in this context, stands as a symbol of liberation from oppressive religious structures and the affirmation of the individual's right to self-empowerment. The satanic Baphomet has seeped into popular culture, appearing in movies, music, and art as a symbol of rebellion, mystery, and the subversion of norms. This cultural presence often reflects the misunderstood and multifaceted nature of the symbol, which can simultaneously inspire fear, fascination, and admiration. While some see it as an icon of evil or chaos, others view it as a representation of freedom from conventional constraints. More recently, the Baphomet has been adopted by other modern satanic groups, such as the Satanic Temple, who have used its image to challenge religious privilege and promote secularism. The temple's statue of Baphomet, which features a winged, goat-headed figure flanked by two children, has become a symbol of resistance against the encroachment of religious ideology into public spaces. For them, the Baphomet is less about spiritual philosophy and more about political activism, a statement against authoritarianism and in favor of pluralism and freedom of thought. The journey of the Baphomet is one that spans centuries, evolving from a cryptic idol of medieval fear to a powerful symbol of spiritual liberation, rebellion, and personal empowerment in the modern age. This symbol, which began as a misunderstood accusation against the Knights Templar, has grown into a complex and multifaceted icon that continues to captivate the imagination of seekers, skeptics, and occultists alike. As we traverse the timeline of the Baphomet's evolution, we uncover not just the story of a symbol, but the shifting tides of human understanding, culture, and spirituality. So, to recap all the information, here is what you need to take home, fellow mystics. The tale begins in the dark shadows of the Middle Ages, with the enigmatic figure of the Baphomet emerging during the trials of the Knights Templar in the early 14th century. The Baphomet was initially conceived as an accusation, a grotesque idol that the Church claimed was worshipped in secret rites, signifying the supposed heresy and corruption of the Templars. It was a tool of power used by the Church to manipulate and dismantle the influence of the Templar order, a shadow cast upon them that hinted at dark rites and blasphemous secrets. However, the Baphomet of the medieval Inquisition was more a phantom of accusation than an actual entity. It represented the fear of the unknown, the other, and was shrouded in the mists of misunderstanding and propaganda. There was no clear description, no concrete depiction, only the dark and fearful imaginings of an age steeped in superstition and theological tyranny. The Baphomet would likely have faded into obscurity were it not for the work of Éliphas Lévi in the 19th century. Lévi, an influential French occultist and writer, resurrected the Baphomet in his quest to reconcile science, magic, and religion. In his seminal work, The Dogma and Ritual of High Magic, Lévi introduced the world to the now iconic image of the Baphomet as the sabbatic goat, a figure seated in meditation with a goat's head, female breasts, and androgynous features. For Lévi, the Baphomet was no mere idol of heresy. It was a profound symbol of the alchemical reconciliation of opposites, embodying balance and harmony between the material and spiritual realms. Lévi's Baphomet was a complex metaphysical symbol, encapsulating the union of male and female, light and dark, human and divine. It was an image that invited deeper contemplation, a cipher for the mysteries of existence, and a reminder that all polarities could find their resolution in the divine. If Lévi reintroduced the Baphomet as a symbol of balance and esoteric wisdom, it was Aleister Crowley who infused it with the spirit of revolution and radical freedom. Crowley, the self-styled prophet of Thelema, took the Baphomet into the 20th century as an emblem of spiritual self-liberation, androgyny, and personal sovereignty. For Crowley, the Baphomet was not merely a symbol of balance, but an active force of enlightenment, the hierophant of the new aeon. Crowley's Baphomet embraced sexual alchemy, the unification of opposites, and the transcending of conventional morality. It became a symbol of the new aeon of Horus, in which each individual is called to discover their true will and achieve self-deification. Crowley identified with the Baphomet, adopting it as a personal moniker when he became head of the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, further cementing its association with rebellion, transformation, and spiritual transcendence. The Baphomet would take another bold turn with the founding of the Church of Satan in 1966 by Anton LaVey. In LaVey's hands, the Baphomet was reimagined once more, now serving as the emblem of satanic philosophy and carnal wisdom. LaVey's sigil of Baphomet, featuring a goat's head within an inverted pentagram, became the official symbol of the Church of Satan and a powerful declaration of self-empowerment, materialism, and defiance against religious hypocrisy. For LaVey and his followers, the Baphomet represented the natural world, human desires, and the rejection of spiritual asceticism in favor of a life lived according to one's own rules and desires. It was no longer just an occult symbol, but a statement of radical individuality, autonomy, and the embrace of one's true nature without fear or shame. The Baphomet, as interpreted by the Church of Satan, became an icon of rational self-interest and a celebration of life's full spectrum, from light to dark. In recent years, the Baphomet has continued to evolve, becoming a focal point for discussions about freedom, secularism, and the right to religious expression. The Satanic Temple, a different entity from the Church of Satan, has used the Baphomet as a symbol of political activism and social justice, challenging the dominance of Christian symbolism in public spaces and advocating for pluralism and secular governance. The temple's now famous statue of Baphomet, flanked by two children, serves as both a provocation and a reminder of the value of diversity in thought and belief. It asks society to confront its own fears and prejudices, to question what it means to be truly free in both thought and expression. From its obscure beginnings as an instrument of accusation and fear, the Baphomet has journeyed through the centuries to become one of the most enduring and versatile symbols in the occult and spiritual realms. It has been reshaped by each age and interpreter, from a figure of medieval dread to an icon of balance, wisdom, rebellion, and self-empowerment. The Baphomet stands today as a complex, multifaceted emblem, at once a reflection of the inner alchemical process of transformation and a challenge to the outer structures of authority and dogma. Its evolution mirrors the evolution of human consciousness itself, revealing how symbols can transcend time, culture, and ideology to remain relevant in the quest for understanding, enlightenment, and freedom. The journey of the Baphomet invites each of us to contemplate its many layers and meanings. It challenges us to look beyond appearances, to question our assumptions, and to explore the boundaries of our own beliefs. This, in the end, is the most important message that this video tries to convey. I am also curious to hear your thoughts. What does the Baphomet symbolize for you? Is it a figure of mystery and fear, a beacon of personal liberation, or something entirely different? Share your thoughts and join the conversation. Your perspective could uncover yet another layer in the rich lore of this ancient and ever-evolving symbol, so drop your answers in the comments below, and feel free to ask any lingering questions you might have. I will do my best to respond to every comment. If you want to delve deeper into the world of ancient wisdom and esotericism, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more insightful videos. And if you want to support my mission to unearth and decipher the forgotten teachings of the ancient mysteries and the encrypted knowledge of Western esotericism, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Until next time, continue to seek out the light, hen to pan.